Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. And thank you very much to pension regulator there for that update on dashboards. I know that's certainly been very interesting for me. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. I've just had to run and grab some headphones because we seem to have a deluge in my little part of Lincolnshire. So I'm just going to give a little update today of what we're doing as a communications team and how that hopefully supports you and some of the things we're working on as well. First thing though, as I was just preparing these slides, something caught my eye that had been released by PLSA. So it was a little piece of regulatory mapping they did about how the LGPS works at a fundamental governance level, and it caught my attention, and I had a little look, and it gave me a thought of how we fit and how we support you as employers in the LGPS. As you can see, that regulatory framework is incredibly complex with lots and lots of information flows going backwards and forwards, and an awful lot of voices contributing to all of the requirements, all of the necessary things we have to do. So it just got me thinking a little bit about the pensions industry, and the LGPS in particular can be really complicated, but hopefully through the things we do with Amy's team, the employee relations team, communicating things to you, and some of the passive communications that come from my side of the business as well. They help you find the right information you need in one collected, consolidated place, which is through our website and through our other communication channels like Pension Matters blog and things like that. If you are relatively new into the pensions industry as well, perhaps you've not seen all these as well. So it's a good opportunity just to remind you of all those things that are there. So make sure you do use us. We're happy for you to rely on us as being your point of contact if you're trying to navigate your way through the industry. So that was just a sort of an aside, really. So I've spoken to many of you before, but usually from an employer relations background. So just thought I'd explain a little bit briefly about where my team has come from in the broader sense. So we were sort of formed during a small restructure internally at WYPF back in 2020 during the good old COVID times. So there used to be a consolidated employee relations and communications function within the business, and they decided that it would be good to split those apart so we could have some specialism and some specific focus on a couple of different areas. So back in somewhere around August time of 2020, a small group of a couple of us moved out of the employee relations team, as is now known as, and formed the communications team. So we're quite a small group. There's 3 of us currently. Myself as the manager, my colleague Andrew Butterfield, who's our marketing and designer person, and a fairly recent recruit, a young man called Adam, who's joined us as a web developer. He's working on a lot of the digital things that I'll talk about going forwards. So that's kind of where we sit. We work closely, more in a back office function now, supporting all the other parts of the business. So it could be Amy's team when they're putting together something like this. So Andrew designed something like the poster for the Employer Engagement Forum, and some of those other communication things we manage, things like the website and newsletters and things like that. So that's where I come from, and that's where I fit into the puzzle here at WYPF. So over the last 3 to 4 years, we've very much pivoted online, as many organisations have, to be fair, especially during the pandemic in 2020, 2021. But it was always the plan that that's where we were heading anyway, and that perhaps just accelerated a few things. So things like annual pension statements are delivered online electronically through the My Pension portal. Most of our presentations are now performed online through Microsoft Teams primarily. Newsletter is available, and the training we do that Amy's team support you with, they're all held online. So it's really important that we make sure those communications are effective for you and efficient for us as well. Just touching on newsletters then. So because we don't print and post them anymore, it's we're working to make sure that people are still accessing and engaging them actively. There's lots of important information there. So everybody that we have an email address for receives an invitation to go and access it from our website, and people who've opted out of communications on an electronic way um, receive a printed summary of that as well. But there's a real important responsibility here on employers to make sure you're also publicising those within your internal communications. We know you do because um, people tell us where they've seen them, and it's really reassuring to hear that. But just worth to re-emphasise that. We're at that time of year when we're just looking at the next round of newsletters. So the summer one went to just active members, and we're now working on the autumn winter ones, which will go to active, deferred, and pensioner members. Obviously, it's only the active members that you have a current relationship with, and they're the ones that we'd like you to support us with. Now, we tend to produce what we think are the most interesting and relevant topics for members to be reading about, but it could be that there's things you'd like us to talk about that we don't talk about. So we're always listening, and we're always keen to have your feedback if there's something you'd like to see featured in there. So we have a team inbox email address, so comms@wypf.org.uk. If there's something you'd like to see featured shortly in the upcoming newsletter, or something more generally you'd like to raise, we'd love to get your input to that. So just drop us an email in there. Something else that's just coming up on the horizon right now is the WYPF annual member and employer meetings. Purposefully, we haven't put the dates out to anybody yet because we just wanted to get this event held first, just to avoid any confusion. So this is very much the annual meeting for employers in the WYPF fund, so West Yorkshire Pension Fund. If you're an employer contributing in the Barnet, Lincolnshire or Hounslow funds, they have their own annual meetings that run to a different schedule. We expect Barnet's to probably be announced with a date towards the end of the year. Lincolnshire tends to run their annual employer meeting around February, so probably in 4 or 5 months' time from now. And Hounslow, we're just waiting for some details because they've moved theirs around a little bit as to when they've held it. So if you're a WYPF employer, please keep an ear out for our annual meeting, which I'll be publicising after this meeting this week. There will also be the members one, which again, if you can help just to bring that to the attention of people within your organisation, that'd be super. So one of the things we do in the past and will continue to do is to try and understand what you think of the service we provide, what we're doing well, and also where we could perhaps do something better. So we run it every year around the April-May time. We've done it as long as I've been in WYPS, that goes back to 2015. We haven't always been actively feeding back the results of that. So I offer my apologies for that. It's really important to us to understand what you do, but then there's the next piece of that for you to understand what we're going to do with the information you give us. So a big thank you to everybody that did complete the 2023 survey. But I would just say, if we look at the number of people that are completing it over the last 5 years or so, the number of people engaging with it has fallen. So I don't know whether that's because it gets missed in such a busy world we live in, or whether it's something to do with the engagement there that you don't feel points that are raised are perhaps answered. So again, if you have some insight into that, I'd be really interested to hear it. And if in next year's survey, when it gets publicised, if you do have the opportunity to engage with it, it's something we'd really appreciate. So what sort of things do we ask you in there? Well, we ask you, do you get the right technical help that you need? How important is access to online training? All those sorts of things all around. It's not just about communications, it's about all the things we do as a pension administrator for you. So overall, what was the feedback? Well, in terms of satisfaction, the satisfaction score had fallen slightly from last year, but still a good score, 81.6%. So 4 out of 5 if you break it down. And we asked you one thing, which was how would you sum it up in one sentence? So we got some really nice feedback across there. So It's a helpful service. We like being able to contact an individual PFR. That's wonderful. But there's always room for improvement. There's lots of individual comments there that we've sort of worked through, and where there's something particularly we can address and improve, then we're looking at that. But what's perhaps more important for us to do is to look at what trends and themes are coming through over the course of not just this survey, but over past years as well. So what you have told us is we're doing lots of things well. We're communicating effectively with your members. The information we send is clear, things like that. But then there's also some things that you're not so satisfied with. And we look at the gap between how important something is and how satisfied you are with it to try and make some decisions and pull out a bit of data around there. So you can see the big blue bar here on the screen, which is all about online forms that are straightforward to fill in. So the employer portal, trying to use that transactional area, that's the biggest gap. That's something we need to think about improving for you. Likewise, there's some challenges around keeping members informed of their pensions. That's the grey bar. And just trying to match how we do that. So that's perhaps speaking of this pivot to a digital first process. So we work all that together and have pulled out some really key things that we know we need to work on for you that will support. And that's looking at the employer portal, the website itself, and the member portal, so My Pension as it's currently referred to. So we gathered all that data, started thinking about how we could improve those services for you. But of course, by surveying the employer group, that's only half the story. So we also then had to think about, well, it's important we make sure we're doing something that works for our customers, the members as well. So we worked with a third party called the Leadership Factor, or TLF, to do a bit of customer engagement around how did they use our digital services, what were they satisfied with, what did they like, what didn't work so well for them, things they'd like to see in the future, and also an opportunity while somebody was engaging with us just to find out a little bit about their attitude to pensions across the piece. How much do they understand them? How much are they interested in them as well? That's one of the big challenges we have with talking to people about pensions is trying to capture that interest with people. So after all that data gathering exercise, what are we actually going to do? Well, we've committed to improve and replace our website and those transactional portals. And we're also going to keep listening and getting your feedback as well. So it's really important as we work through these processes to do that. I just thought it would be useful to stop off here and just clarify, as I understand it, how the pension dashboard ecosystem fits in to this. So we're talking about logging into something to see your pension details. It's important to be very clear as to what the dashboard is and isn't going to do. So it's very clearly, as our colleagues from TPR set out, it's a consolidated reference point for you to see high-level data about all of your pensions in one place. Now, that's incredibly important when you're looking at things like lost pension pots and trying to engage members in looking at their total pension savings, planning for that retirement journey. What it isn't is a transactional space where people can then go and do something, either update details or run estimates about what it might be worth in the future in certain circumstances, or pay more into their pension, things like that. And that's where we fit in. So our portals for members will provide that transactional space. It does now to some degree as My Pension, but we want to make sure we can fully support and really build on that engagement the dashboards will bring by having a really robust, nice space for people to come in and engage with their pensions. And on the other side of that, we want to provide that same experience for yourselves as employers as well. So just come back to the portals first then. The high level plan that we're working to is that we're going to design a brand new front end that we will design, write code, and manage ourselves. The reason for that is twofold. Firstly, it gives us flexibility to add more features that we want. So at the minute, we have something that's provided as a fairly stock service from our pension administration software provider. So it will allow us to do something that's much more tailored to us. It will help us improve things where there's issues. I know we've had for years a number of issues on the employer portal trying to use the work trays where you have to sometimes work around some little bugs in there, things like that. So it'll give us much more control around fixing some of those things. We'll also be able to give you a much more streamlined dashboard-like experience as well. So when you log in, you'll be able to see a summary of information you need. It's a big piece of work for us, and we need to get this completed in a robust and timely way. So to achieve that, we're setting it into two phases. Phase one will be to duplicate the existing features of the employer and member portals, put in a new look and feel, a new wrapper, with an opportunity then to start adding and improving features within there. Looking at the other half, the non-transactional side of our digital space, that's our website, wypf.org.uk. When we, particularly with members, spoke to them about how they found it, there was a very, very clear message that came through, and that was, website is sort of fine. If I find what I'm looking for, the information's great. However, it's really hard to actually find what I'm looking for. I don't know where to go to see it. And that feedback was replicated as well within that employer space. So what are we going to do to address that? Well, we're starting again with the website. We're building it up. We're going to build it from the ground up with a completely new navigation style. So when you land on the new website, it will be much more semantic around, if you want to go and find something, there'll be a journey there that you can say, I want to fill in some forms. I want to get some training. There will be a sensible semantic progression as to go and find that. And we'll put that across both the member areas and the employer areas to make sure you can really engage with the content there in a quick, efficient and streamlined way. And then we'll also look to start putting in some features that, frankly, we would start to expect to see in 2023. So things like online chat support, things like that. So these are both running along as projects now. So as I said, we are quite a small team, so it's going to take us some time to roll these out. But it would very much be useful, maybe even essential, to make sure that we check in with you, our employer customers, to make sure that what we're doing is working for you and is going to work in the right way. So if you're interested in joining us as we work through these developments and start to release prototypes and beta version, if you could please drop me an email to say you're interested in joining us, being a test site for us to perhaps do a bit of workshop, either online or in person, just to see how it's looking and get your feedback, I'd really appreciate it. It would be a really helpful thing. And so just a few final thoughts then around us as a business in general and as a team. Then we will continue listening to you, and we'll do everything we can to try and make the changes and improve the service to help and support you. Obviously, anything to do with a member's pension or some administration work, keep talking to who you talk to now. Contact your PFL, contact Amy's team, speak to the contact centre if you need to. None of that changes. But if you have broader pieces of feedback about where we can support you, please do engage with us, do communicate and send it in to us, and that would be really helpful. So that's everything I had to say, and I'll just pause there if anybody's got any feedback or questions.